Right, I'm anxious.
You recording?
Good morning, Harris Academy. My name's Mr. Doherty, and I'm joined by my co-presenter,
Mr. Rickenberg.
And we are here for our weekly ramble of jogging around the world. Good morning to you, sir. How are you today?
Yeah.
Go on.
Episode 16 today.
Is it 16?
16, yeah.
So that means because you had a couple of weeks break. We've done 16 Friday mornings in L20 doing this.
It's nuts.
Wow.
Yeah, I am all right. I'm tired, a bit miserable. Parents' evening was good yesterday, I must admit. Had some good conversations, but I'm feeling it now.
Tired today. Yeah. So we've obviously got to say good morning to our producer Ava. How are you today, Ava?
I'm all good, thanks.
Are you tired today, Ava?
I'm very tired today.
Everyone's tired.
Are you tired?
Yeah. Absolutely shattered. But I'm just thinking 3 periods, roll on 2 o'clock, do my gate duty. I'll have the car running whilst I do my duty, and I am straight out of here because it's been a long week, and we've got
really long week.
2 weeks left to go.
Yeah, no, we've got less than 2 weeks now. 1 week and 4 days.
4 days, right, there we go. Okay, so let's start this morning with what are you drinking? Well, I know what you're drinking because it was my round this morning.
Yeah, let's talk about your round better. I think so.
Well, go on, say what I've done wrong first. Go on.
You didn't get Ava a drink, sir.
I didn't get Ava a drink. The reason being I didn't get Ava a drink, I do apologise, Ava, is because you came with a hot chocolate last week. So I thought that's going to be Ava's thing.
An assumption is what you made there, sir.
I've made a massive assumption, so I'm sorry. So I didn't want it to go cold on her. And I didn't want to buy her a coffee, because you can't be encouraging that.
Well, that's true. I've got a caramel macchiato, so we've swapped round today, haven't we, sir?
Yeah, and I've gone for the Christmas latte. It's just a latte.
Yeah, I do like the caramel mac though. So maybe we can carry on.
I feel like we've been sponsoring, or it's been sponsored by Starbucks quite a lot, because there are other brands available.
Yeah, they're not helping us out. We're just putting money in their pockets. So
that's right. And Ava, what are you drinking this morning?
She's got the best drink ever.
I have got the best drink ever. I've got the one, the only, sixth form water.
Lovely. In a Starbucks cup.
Yeah, in a Starbucks cup.
Lovely.
They got monopoly on us.
Yeah, they definitely have. Okay, brilliant. So, what's next on our agenda?
Shoutouts.
Ooh, go on. We'll start with parenting and awesome. So shout out parenting yesterday. All the year 11s, all their family members, carers, whoever came to look after them. Very informative evening. I think that's a big one, that parents' evening, isn't it? Because it's that after the mock period. I think some of them get a bit of a reality check, let's be honest, about how they're getting on and what they need to do to improve.
Yeah, I'm just really happy with how on board most of the parents were. I think, to be fair, every conversation I had, everything I said, the parents just sort of just glared.
Yeah,
just at the child. But yeah, I also want to shout out the year, like you said, year 11 team. Yeah, the people that set up the event, and also our site team who set up a very good Thurrock Hall and a very good setup in there. Which really
so Miss McLaren, Miss Jones, Mr. Maxted, he has a few jobs, doesn't he? Being our correspondent. Miss Rolfe, she set up the hall. They did a very good job, and then the character ambassadors did brilliant. I'm not sure the names of the other people involved, but Harrison was walking around with a tray of sweets, wasn't he?
Yeah,
and a jug of water. So I thought that was a really nice touch. Yeah. Parents' evening's quite a long evening, especially for the teachers who just sat there the whole time. So yeah, that was really good. Any other shout outs, Ava?
Krista.
Yes. Krista, go on.
I just want to shout Krista out, year 7.
Year 7.
And the reason why I want to shout her out was because we did a task where we had to make a poster about saving our polar regions, right? And we didn't quite get enough time to finish it. But she said, "Sir, can I take it home and bring it back into you?" And I was like, "Sure, absolutely. Do whatever you need to do." And then the next day, brings it back in, and it's now got pride of place on my wall in my classroom. So
lovely. So she's made the display.
She's made a display. It's sort of like, if we talk about character traits, a bit of responsibility to make sure the work gets finished.
A bit of grit to get it done.
Confidence as well to then bring it straight to me.
Nice.
It's good. I'm happy.
Is she a listener?
She will be soon.
When she gets her shout out. Brilliant. Okay, superb. So what's next on the agenda, Ava, please?
What are we talking about today?
Global atmospheric circulation.
Could have picked a better one.
Yeah, my eyes just shut then. And I'll tell you why we've both sort of pulled that face. And as I walked past the correspondence office this morning, I popped my head in and said, "We're doing global atmospheric circulation today," and he went, "Phew." Yeah. So the reason being is because this is quite a tricky topic.
Yeah, we need to cover it. But do you know what? Parents' evening yesterday, the podcast got a shout out to me.
By who?
But I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say names.
Can't say name.
No, but I was like, yeah, because she listened to the podcast the day before the human paper, and then she got a really good grade. So I don't know whether correlation is causation in this instance, but this is what we do it for. I laugh and we joke, just trying to like make it so like we're making loads of money.
We are trying to actually give.
We've just got a bank of revision. That's what we're making essentially.
Yeah.
So like we do encourage you to use it. It helps us out a little bit as well, of course it does. But this is why we're making this podcast, because we hope that they can just go back and forth, and if they ever want to revise it, there's now something on YouTube which isn't really complicated, and there's also something on Spotify that they can listen to whilst they're doing the washing up or something.
Exactly, yeah. So global atmospheric circulation. Let's get into this because we're on a tight time schedule today.
Yeah.
What is it?
What is it? So the Earth always wants to be in equilibrium. It wants to be warm all the way around, right? But it's impossible to do that because of the angle and the tilt of the Earth and how far certain parts of the planet are away from the sun. So, as a result, we've got different bands of sort of normal weather conditions. Some are hot, some are cold, and then some are wet and some are dry. Yeah. Because it's got to be some sort of form of balance. That's why normally we have 2 sort of wet areas, 2 dry areas, 2 hot areas, and 2 cold and like colder areas as well. So start off our journey all the time at 0 degrees latitude. Yeah. Which is also known as what?
The equator.
The equator. Now the equator, if you go back to our tropical rainforest episodes, we've said that the equator is on average the warmest part of our planet. Yeah. Right, and the reason for that is because the sun's rays are more concentrated on it. And when you look at a globe, it just makes total sense, doesn't it? Like the equator is the bit that almost, it looks like if you're going to throw something at it, it's going to hit the equator easier than it's going to hit the poles, right? So all of that heat's hitting the equator and it's warming the ground up, right? And as it's warming the ground up, and as the ground is warm, it starts to heat the air above it. And we know, and we need the students to get this into their head, is when air gets hot, it rises.
It rises. This is the basis, isn't it, of all of this sort of stuff. That when air warms up, it rises. So I always try and give the example of, if you're boiling a kettle at home, the steam comes out the top, or a pan of pasta or rice or whatever it might be. It goes underneath the cupboards, doesn't it? Because it's aiming to get up high.
There's a few things that I say for that is if you want to go high in a hot air balloon, you pump loads of heat into there. And again, if you want to go down, turn the heat off and it will start sinking. Also, I always say, when you light a lighter or light a match, what direction does the flame go? Upwards. Yeah. So even if you do that, it's going to point upwards.
Interesting.
So hot air rises, right? And as hot air rises, we get low pressure. Yeah. Right? And because we get low pressure, again, the way I like to sort of explain it is because there's low pressure. If you have low pressure in your tyre, I've used this analogy before. There's loads of air available. There's loads of space for air to get into. So if we sort of use that analogy, with low pressure, there's lots of room for clouds to form. Yeah. Right? So at low pressure, we normally get lots of clouds. And if we normally get lots of clouds, what do we also tend to get? Rain. So because the air at the ground's hot, there's a lot of evaporation taking place. Yeah. It's rising, and it actually cools down quite quickly. Yeah. So because it cools down quite quickly, the water vapor can condense really quickly. So at 0 degrees, we have low pressure, so we get very wet conditions at 0 degrees because of the low pressure. Yeah. What's the temperature like there? Hot. So at 0 degrees, we have low pressure and we have hot weather and wet weather. So it's hot and wet. What biome on planet Earth is hot and wet?
Tropical rainforest. And that spans, obviously not with the ocean top, but around the middle of the Earth.
All the way around the middle of the Earth. Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's what happens at the equator. The sun, because that is where it's most concentrated. That's a key term that I think they need to know. That warm air then rises. Yeah. It cools, condenses, clouds form. Yeah. And we have a belt of low pressure. Yeah, belt of low pressure. Yeah. And it's warm and wet.
Like you say, it spans all the way across at 0 degrees. Yeah. Right. As that air is rising, it gets high enough where it starts to cool down. Yeah. And then it moves. So it goes up from the equator and then it moves because it hits like a ceiling in the atmosphere. It can't get any higher. And then it moves equally in separate directions, and then it starts to sink again. Yeah. Now, when cold air sinks, we get high pressure.
This is where it's a little bit confusing, I think, for them. But go on, keep going.
So when air gets cold, it starts to sink back down. Yeah. Right. So that's the same. If you're in a hot air balloon and you want to go back down to the ground, you turn the sort of jet off, you turn the fuel off, and then because the air starts to get colder, it starts to get heavier, so it starts to sink back down. Now, from 0 degrees to 30 degrees, where the air sinks, that is our Hadley cell. Yeah. Yeah, so we've got these atmospheric cells which, when they meet, when cells meet, we get very sort of like we get very settled conditions, but in that sort of pressure belt, if that makes sense, right? So at 30 degrees, we've got cold air sinking, right? Cold air sinking creates high pressure.
Yeah.
So because there's high pressure, there's no room in that air for clouds to really form, like big bulks of clouds. So we tend to get clear skies.
Yeah. High
pressure, clear skies. We've said it before, low pressure, lousy weather.
Yeah.
High pressure, happy weather.
The problem with that though, that I found recently, is that if you write lousy weather, it doesn't mean anything. You've got to say like unsettled, windy, wet. Yeah. So what's happening with that? So we have the low pressure where the warm air rises, like you say, it reaches that ceiling, moves out. Then it starts to sink, creating high pressure. They almost kind of go the opposite way, don't they? When it's rising, it's low pressure. When it's sinking, it's high. And as that warm air is sinking back down towards the surface of the Earth, which is the warmest part. Yeah. Because we know as every 100 meters you go up, you lose around a degree in temperature, right? So as that air is sinking back down towards the Earth, it starts to warm up again. And any moisture in that air is absorbed. So then that is what creates these clear, dry, calm conditions.
So we get the calm conditions. So it's very clear, it's very dry, but because we're still close to the equator, it's very hot. Right? So can you name me any biomes that are hot and dry? Deserts. Now at 30 degrees, I don't know if we can see it on here, but at 30 degrees we've got sort of belt round here, which is where the Sahara Desert is. So we've got a perfect example of 30 degrees north, where we've got one of the driest parts of the planet. And also at 30 degrees, roughly around 30 degrees, we've got the Atacama Desert, which hasn't seen rain in 500 years. And that part of that is because of the high pressure there.
Okay.
So, quick recap, 0 degrees, low pressure, and hot. Low pressure, wet and hot. 30 degrees, high pressure, clear skies, dry, also hot. Because we're still close to the equator. Then we get to 60 degrees, and that's where it gets confusing for me.
This is where it gets a little bit interesting.
So at 60 degrees, to make life easy, we say it's low pressure again. Because we go low, high, low, high. So 60 degrees is low pressure. But we've got sort of two conflicting air masses going on here. So from 30 degrees to 60 degrees, we have the ferrule cell, right? And where we've got 60 degrees, generally we have low pressure. And to make life easy, we will say it is mostly wet and cool. We're not going to say cold because it's not really cold, but it's wet and it's cool. So we've got air starting to we've got air starting to rise again, because we've got the heat. We've got two things going on here. We've got hot air from the equator that's moving north, right? So then that starts to rise. We've then got really cold air that's moving from the poles downwards towards the equator, and that starts to rise as well. So we have generally got low pressure at 60 degrees, and it is wet still, but it's cooler.
And we are located in that roughly in that belt, aren't we? So I try to think of what's going on in the ferrule cell. There's a couple of air masses colliding, creates quite unstable weather, doesn't it? It's almost a little bit feral at times. And I look at where we are located, and I say to the kids, what sort of weather do we have in the UK? 1 minute it's high pressure, clear blues. Next minute it's cloudy and it's raining. So I think that's where a good way of sort of remembering what goes on in that belt.
Because we do get mixed weather. So we get high pressure, we get low pressure.
So essentially what's happened is risen. It's sinking, and then it's starting to rise again. We're happy with that. We want to keep this quite simple, don't we?
Because that's the thing that people are getting wrong. They're getting the simple, basic stuff wrong, which is causing problems.
And what we've come to realise really now is when it comes to these exam questions, is if you're getting that key terminology in the right places, you're getting the marks. So we keep this as simple as possible.
We're not trying to write academic articles here. We're trying to get your marks.
Marks in your GCSE.
So we've got low pressure at the equator, which is wet because it's low pressure, and hot because it's at the equator. We've got 30 degrees, we've got high pressure, which is dry because of the high pressure, and hot still because it's near the equator. As we move further away from the equator and start sort of like moving over that curvature of the Earth, we've got 60 degrees, which is wet normally because of the low pressure, and it's cooler because we're further away from the equator.
So then the last bit, 90 degrees.
I think it's quite easy. High pressure. So at 90 degrees we've got high pressure. It makes sense. We've got really cold air, so of course that's going to sink. Right. So that makes sense. Right. So because we've got high pressure, the weather is going to be wet or dry. Dry, right? Because it's as far away from the equator as possible, is it going to be hot or cold?
Very cold.
Very cold. So at 90 degrees, we've got high pressure, which means it's going to be dry, and because it's far away from the equator, it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
So now it makes total sense why we can say to people the Arctic and the Antarctic are the largest deserts in the world, because they don't actually get that much snow. And the reason why they don't get snow is because there's no precipitation, there's no clouds, because it's high pressure.
Yeah, and what I think people need to realise is that ice on the ground isn't snow.
No, it's millions of years old in some instances.
Yes, it's ice. It's frozen. Like Antarctica's frozen land, isn't it? And Arctic's a frozen ocean. They're very different things, because someone would be like, well, how can it be dry? There's loads of ice there, and you're like, no, there's no precipitation. It hasn't fallen.
I suppose it makes sense. It's that cold in the Arctic that the literal water freezes.
Yeah,
so you get the ice.
Yeah. So, very quick recap. What time is it, neighbour?
15 minutes.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Okay, then. So we've got the equator, low pressure, where it rises, warm, wet. Yeah. Then that's 0 degrees. Then we go to 30 degrees, where that air then starts sinking. High pressure, it's dry and it's hot because it's near the equator, and that is where we find the Savannah Desert. Sorry, not the Savannah, Sahara Desert. Then we've got around 60 degrees, where it starts to rise again, and we're going to go low pressure to keep it simple, where it's unsettled, it's wet, still not freezing, but it's cold. It's where we are. Then we get to 90 degrees, which is the polar. So I didn't say 60 degrees is the feral cell, isn't it?
60, so 30 to 60 is the feral cell, and then 60 to 90 is the polar cell.
Perfect. And then 0 to 30 is the Hadley cell. And then, so we get to 60 degrees, that 60 to 90, that area is then sinking again, high pressure, where it's cold and it's dry. And that is where we find Antarctica, frozen desert, the Arctic, frozen area.
It is, you got to imagine these cells sort of like conveyor belts, they're constantly driving these things, these low pressure.
Like that, isn't it? Yeah. So, okay, I think that's all right.
I think that's nice and simple.
Yeah.
And to do it in like 10 minutes?
Yeah, and try to just keep it simple. They almost alternate high and low pressure, if you can get the difference between them. And when we say high pressure equals happy weather, low pressure equals lousy weather, we don't want you to write that. We just want you to think, high pressure, it's clear, it's calm. Low pressure, more uncertain.
Just one other analogy that I like to use. With low pressure, we're saying the hot air's rising. I like to think it's like a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah.
So like you don't feel the pressure because everything's lifted off you. Yeah. Whereas high pressure, you feel the pressure because all that air is like sinking on your shoulders. You can really feel it because that's high pressure, right? So that's just one more sort of little analogy I like to use sometimes.
Nice. Okay, brilliant. Very good. That's Mr. Jordan laughing through the window, but we won't talk about why they're laughing. I think they're trying to talk about some sort of football result, but I don't know what it is. So what's next on the agenda, Ava? Pay attention. Come on. Ignore them.
What have we got here? We've got he's doing the hammers sign is what he's doing.
And he's drawn a West Ham sign on the window.
And it says irons there. And it says battered on there as well. So.
Morgan's getting a detention for that. Right. What's next on the agenda, Ava?
Benjamin Zephaniah.
Oh, the news.
Yeah.
We're on the news. So Benjamin Zephaniah.
I've not been able to say that last word, so you go first.
Yeah, so he, the Year 7's read Refugee Boy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's by him. And he was a poet, a writer, very, very famous. I think he was part of his parents maybe have been part of the Windrush generation. I think he's from Birmingham, but he sadly died of cancer yesterday. But what I was talking to my brother about, and I think he was only diagnosed 8 weeks ago.
Jesus.
So it's very, very quick. But yeah, that's really sad. And the English department will be the ones, because I think, David, did you say you've studied his poems?
Yeah, in year 8.
Yeah, he did a lot of work with his poems. Got some really good ones actually. So it's worth having a little look into him if you don't know who he is. And obviously our thoughts go out to his family and friends. Who's next? Or what's next on the news?
Beavers returning to kind.
We like this one because I know we often talk about a lot of negative stuff, don't we?
So we're talking about the Beavers today.
And who give us this one?
Our correspondent.
Our correspondent was on the ball this week, so Mr. Max, thank you very much for this story. We like this one. This is quite a positive one.
Yeah. So in the Cairngorms in Scotland. Yeah. It sounds a little bit more exciting when you say like beavers have returned, that they found their own way there or something like that. But the beaver, we've got the conditions again in some places in the UK to be able to re-release some of these sort of animals back into the wild, which is fantastic. And beavers do a lot of good for ecosystems.
Yeah,
so
really good.
they do. It's beavers that dam stuff up.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
So I was, so they, there's
been a long week.
Yeah, no, otters. As well, aren't they? So yeah, beavers do a lot of good for the ecosystem, and they're a good balancer of the ecosystem.
Yeah, and they
as well.
also they're pretty good at cutting down trees and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So they, like natural deforestation, if you like.
But yeah, really, it's good to see all this new, or not new, but those old wildlife being reintroduced in the wild in the UK. It just shows that we are doing something right.
I was going to say, it gives me the vibe that like things are getting cleaner.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like if we can get them back in there, then maybe we can start. And that is a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, I want to
yeah.
go there,
Okay, good. So beavers come back to Scotland.
Yeah.
That's wicked. I like that one. It's a positive news. What else have we got?
Volcano.
Oh,
Yeah.
then back to
Yeah.
back to the real world of geography.
In Indonesia, Mount Merapi erupted whilst people were out walking, and
was it 14 of them or something?
it says on there, I think it says 11 on there.
11.
Yeah,
11.
11. So people walking around. It just shows that you can't, especially with these big composite volcanoes, you can never be too sure. Because even though we know that they can erupt, when they happen in some of these parts of the world where, Indonesia is an EDC, but because maybe they don't always have an AC quality sort of warning systems. There's over 400 languages in Indonesia, so good luck sending a text message out to all of those.
People might just get stuck short.
Well, we don't know the ins and outs of it, but Mount Merapi can cause some serious devastation. I'm pretty sure it has in the past as well. So thoughts go out to the people caught up in that. It's always useful for when we're studying global hazards, as we're doing now, for our year 10s to just have a look and see what the characteristics of this are. Because if they can come in and say it was like a VEI4 or something like that, we're going to be well happy with that.
Yeah, amazing.
So and I do just want to bring up the migration policy that's coming in.
Yeah.
Because I think we're very positive about the government in this country, aren't we, sir?
Oh yeah.
So
it's definitely not a political podcast.
We always try to stay objective, don't we? But they're introducing a new 5-point plan to reduce migration. I think this is useful because in year 9 we talked about migration a little bit, about net migration and net loss. We're at net migration at the moment, I think, of around 700,000 people every single year.
Right.
So 700,000 people legally coming into the UK. And what I didn't realise is that the majority of those are individuals, skilled workers coming into the UK, but then they're bringing and I like the word they use, they're bringing their dependents with them. Right? Yeah. So then someone might come over here to work in the care sector, but then they'll bring their children with them as well. And that obviously is then adding to population. So they don't want that to happen.
No, they've stopped. I was listening to the radio the other day, and a lady from South Africa, she was working in the care system and had to leave her family at home.
Yeah, which I don't say it's ridiculous. But what they're saying now is that you can get your job in the care sector, you can still do that. But any dependents have to now be earning over like £38,000, which is I think it's double the average salary of someone in the care sector. Yeah. So how is that? I get what they're doing. They're trying to sort of stop migration, or not trying to stop migration, trying to reduce migration. It apparently reduces migration by 300,000 people.
That's what they're aiming to do, aren't they? Yeah.
And it's because the Rwanda policy is slowing down a little bit, and there's a lot of problems with the Rwanda policy. So they're putting something else in place to show that they're still doing something about migration.
And there'll be a vote next week for the Rwanda policy.
And interestingly, the Labour Party seem to be pretty happy with it as well, which is good. It's just going to be interesting what the results are.
And from our sort of geographical point of view, it's really interesting to see what countries do to try and curb migration, control migration,
especially so that links to A level when we're doing complex migration and about immigration policies. It links to our UK topic with year 7s where we talk about migration, so that could probably come up in the next few lessons. So I just think it's interesting to see where that story is going to go.
Yeah, definitely. We will be keeping an eye on that. Right, what is the last thing? Are we on the last thing?
Second to last thing.
With Mount Merapi, it was 11 bodies were found, but it was actually 75 hikers.
Ooh, so they've only found 11 of them.
So I think I feel there might be a pyroclastic flow flying down. No, you know what? They got caught up in the lava flow, I think.
Oh my God, it's so cold in here as well. I'm thinking, that's awful. That's rough. Oh God, 75. Yeah. Right. Well, what is it? The weather?
It is the weather.
Well, all right. Do you know what?
Got some CBs, I think.
Yeah, we've got some clear blues out there this morning. So what sort of pressure is that, Mr. Wickenberg?
That's high pressure.
That's high pressure because you can literally not a cloud in the sky.
No, it was low pressure yesterday because it was raining.
I tell you what, it was just cold. Yeah. It's just so cold at the minute, isn't it? I don't know. Is anyone else struggling to wake up in the morning and get out of bed? Because it is.
I am. What's it like over the weekend?
The weekend is actually not too bad.
Lovely.
It's actually not. So tomorrow, 13 degrees.
Right.
That's
With a bit of rain though. With a bit of rain. And on Sunday, it's 12 degrees.
Right.
That's
Dry or
too,
wet?
That's too hot for
Is
December.
it dry? I know. Is it dry
And
or wet?
It's wet.
Right.
But then it stays that way. Monday it goes a bit drier. But then in the middle of the week it goes down to like 3.
You got a career in this, I think. That was
Yeah,
great.
I think
Brilliant.
that's
wasn't
really
it?
good. Yeah, that was good. I like that. Ava. Well done. So down to 3 in a week though, so that's all we need.
Yeah.
But 12 is a bit hot for this time of year, isn't it? It's just
Yeah, I think again because of that 60 degrees, that mixture
That
of pressures.
mixture. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So and our final thing today.
No, we got the news. No, we got
Istanbul
the
first.
fact.
Oh, you trust it?
This was
So excited.
last minute. It is.
Yeah, but I quite like it.
I quite like it as well.
What?
Should we tell them? I think no. Do you know what Ava said? The city anyway. So this one's on you, sir.
Istanbul is the only major city that sits on 2 continents.
Yes. Say it again.
Istanbul
Yeah.
is the only major city that sits on 2 continents. I tell you, I'd love to go to Istanbul.
Do you know what Istanbul used to be called?
Go on.
Constantinople.
Lovely, good
Yeah.
knowledge. And did you say that there's a bridge?
There's a bridge. So
And
you
what
cross
are the 2
bridge.
continents?
2 continents are Europe and Asia, and that's why they can pay in euros.
Yeah.
Turkey, or Turkey, as it's now called. But yeah, you cross the bridge. 2 sides of the city. One is Asian side, one's European side.
Lovely. I'd love to go. Really, definitely high up on my bucket list. Right, okay.
Giveaway.
The giveaway. We don't
Right,
need to do
this
the
was-
what's the spinning wheel because not enough people actually commented.
This was a. We got loads of comments from the same person.
Yeah.
Which and now they've all been deleted. I don't even know
By
if she
who?
wants it.
Oh, right.
But our lovely world map goes to, and this I'm happy it goes because she loves geography.
And she's
It
brilliant.
goes to Alexandra in year 10.
Well done, Alexander. So very, very well
Yeah.
done. Please come and collect your prize.
My dad was a close second.
Was it?
Yeah.
He knew it, didn't he?
He
Did
didn't
he know it
it
off the top of
Or
his head?
He didn't quite follow the rules because he told me out loud.
So he didn't
So
tell
he's not following the rules, so he don't get it.
It's like Constantine
Yeah.
asking for a shout out in
Yeah.
lesson. Okay, right, what time are we on, Ava?
27 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty good. I feel like we've had quite a few conversations today, digressing as per. Well, thank you so much for this morning, sir. Thank you very much, Ava.
Thank you for that Mum Marathi stuff. That's cool. I'm
Yeah, I
happy
like
with
that. Yeah, it was good. Well, we obviously don't like that, but you know, it's interesting. We just love the interesting stuff. Right, thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend. Well done. Well done. Well done, Ava.
Thank you, sir.
Brilliant.